Welcome to Burning the Red Shirt. We're back. Second episode of the year. Burning the Red Shirt 002 in 2025. And pre-national championship game, we're going to discuss a little bit of maybe some 2025 best ball draft thoughts. I had put out a couple articles about who was being taken and who I would think that would be taken and all that. But first off, I hear a revelation here from Andrew that you're going to for some reason the end of college football means you're going to give up coffee.
It's more so that doing it intra-season probably isn't the best, considering how strung out I live my life during CFB. So the off season, the idea is things will be a lot more. It'll be a easier time to try and lean into that. I tried it last year, I think maybe it was 2 years ago, and I just went totally cold turkey. Do not recommend that.
Headaches?
What's that? So
headache is fine.
I could deal with the headache. That's not a problem. So the progression was basically like 24 hours is fine, but after 24 hours, then the headache set in, and that's like, okay, I can live with a headache. It's not the end of the world. And that was like for a day or so. But the real problem becomes after the headaches, and this is like you like Google around. I wasn't sure what was going on, because I was like, I did not expect this at all. But like you Google around and other people experience the same thing. It's backache that sets in, and it's debilitating. It's so bad. Like you like, and I initially tried to just like fight through it, and like I dealt with back pain like that when COVID started. So I was like, shit, is this back again? But totally directly caffeine withdrawal related. I tried to like just like take Advil or whatever. Tried to like just fight through it. And outside of like when I'm exercising or whatever, it was pretty constant. It was horrific. I made it like a week, and I was like, I can't do it. I need to get back on the sauce. And immediately, like, just murder a cup and I'm totally fine. Like, just shows how exactly like how dependent your body is on this shit. But this time I'm gonna like, I'll go right now. I'm probably like 1 to 2 cups a day, closer to 2. But I like, if I do 1 a day, that's fine. That's enough. The 2 is like just like because it's like enjoyable in the morning. But I'll try and do like a firm 1 to start after CFB, and then I'll cut down to like 0.8, 0.7, 0.5, and do it trickle down slowly. And I think that will be that will avoid the horrific withdrawal symptoms that I dealt with.
What's your coffee? What are you doing? Right now I'm in a French press stage of my life because we have an espresso machine and I want like just more of like a traditional black coffee. So I whipped out the French press. And so I'm just doing that these days. Are you just like pot of coffee guy or?
Yeah.
Keurig? Are we doing like legitimate handle coffee?
No, it's like the like, it's the like extra caffeinated version of like the cheap shit that you buy at ShopRite, and like probably putting double the recommended dosage into it, and doing like a big cup. So in reality, I'm probably taking in a ton of caffeine, but like I don't get fancy with it. My buddy made something like that for me when I was over his place for one of the playoff games a few weeks ago, and that shit's dope. But like I don't have the patience, the time to like mess around with that stuff.
Oh, patience for French press?
Yeah.
The boiling of the water is one thing, and then you have to wait like 4 or 5 minutes for it, but it is good.
I mean, it's just button.
I would 100% just do a typical like K cup if I could, but like we have this Nespresso machine my wife likes, so, and that stuff gets you like those. I had some hard stuff go on this summer, and I was drinking like 3 of those. Because I was like at home remote working, and I just was just like the enjoyment of it. So I've kind of tilted a little bit towards like some cover your ears like decaf or even like half calf.
Whoa.
So yeah, but anyways, national championship game is obviously on Monday the 20th, and right here in my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. I will not be attending, but
you can get the credential approved for BTR.
No, they got shot down fairly quick, and I'm just happy I got a response. And lots of props out there already. I'm going to be playing DFS for this one for sure. I've already like max entered like $500 worth
Why?
of stuff.
You know you're going to lose.
Yeah, but I'm priming my account, as all the bigwigs, all the big bettors would say. So what's like your angle? What's your first angle of this national championship game?
So as we went back and forth, I started out post semifinals like, oh, I'm not going to do much or whatever. But now we're like 15 bets in. A lot of so far this hasn't come back to bite me. I'm sure it will. But a lot of parlaying big favorites across other sports with Ohio State money line to get like good numbers. Where I've done it like 5 times now, and I have a decent amount of where my Ohio State money line averages to like 180 minus 180. So a bunch of that. I play Riley Leonard anytime touchdown at a bad number, so that was fun. Got the Jeremiah Love rushing under at before it got hit yesterday, so it's nice to have that in pocket. I feel like there's a few different ways that can win, and then been doing some stuff with Bo Collins receiving under calf strain. Like Freeman's quote makes it sound like basically he'll practice. I'll try and like get there and then he'll play. I think one of the interesting things about the Natty as it relates to injuries is like there's no saving anyone. So I feel like you are more likely to get a guy pushed through and be ineffective if you're when you're dealing with injury situations, like that's an angle that we traditionally look for when it comes to props. But now I feel like when you do have guys that are banged up, the scale maybe tilts a little more toward them playing poorly or playing partially than voiding, where we get that like so many times in season, right? We get like, amazing angle, it just fucking voids.
You're not waiting or hoping for the helmet off. You're not hoping that like Dante Moore's helmet pops off so Ethan Garbers comes in for one play, right? Like I think that's a really good point. I think specifically with Bo Collins, I think that's a really good point because I don't think they're, obviously Notre Dame's not a great passing team. They don't want to pass it a ton. They have just a bunch of guys. It's Bo Collins was a receiver one for them, but even then, what does that mean?
Yeah,
it's a great Ohio State defense. So I think he could run a couple routes and then shut it down, and that wouldn't be crazy at all. And then even if you told me he was full strength, I probably would project something right on the dot for his number, his number is somewhere. What did you get it at? 18.5 or 15?
No, I wish I played more. I played under 20.5 at minus 140. And then this morning it got pulled at FanDuel, but it's still at ESPN at 19.5 juiced up. So I parlayed it with the Thunder tonight. Hopefully they don't lose. Thunder money line. It's at minus 600 or some shit. But it's the NBA, right? Every fucking game comes down to the final 5 minutes. I'm sure it'll be sweatier than I would like, but that can't parlay those two things, and it's minus 103. So I have some under 20.5, under 19.5. Figure he probably that even gives you some wiggle room for a couple catches, hopefully.
Easily. I mean, in his last 6 games, he's gone for 0 yards, 13 yards, 18, 37, 16, 15. It's just not there's zero volume there.
And at this point, he's, what is he, the 4th option in the passing game?
At this point, yeah, I would say Evans is definitely ahead. Faison is ahead. I think after last game with Greathouse, you can't possibly think that Greathouse is behind Bo Collins. And it's not like Bo Collins is a catch and run guy. Bo Collins is like a true X, right? Like a taller, lankier guy that I wouldn't say runs downfield, but he's not running screens and stuff. It's not like you have to worry about a Zachariah Branch bubble screen that goes 50 yards.
Yeah. He do you have thoughts on Faison? 41.5 feels a little steep.
I haven't looked into the stuff enough. It's going to be pretty tight. I bet we're going to like the under. And I'm fairly positive we like the over on Riley Leonard. Yeah, we do. Shocker.
I got his attempts at 13.5 parlayed with Michigan basketball money line. So
13.5 rushing attempts?
Yeah, I played
That's going to be tight, isn't it?
It's 14.5 juiced up now, so I got a little bit of value. I agree it'll kind of be tight.
But you have under.
No, I have over.
You have over.
Yeah.
That feels steep. That feels like a non-traditional Andrew Katz bet.
How many times do you think he gets sacked?
You need some sacks. I think you need some sacks for sure. Because we haven't really messed with it
I
too
think they run
much.
the shit out of him.
I mean, he had 14 last game,
But he missed.
he had 18 last game. So
fine too.
I don't know. He's only gone over 14 once, and it was the last game.
Yeah.
That's a tight number, and I'm not saying that's a bad number. I think ultimately, like Penn State was just crushing him in the offensive line, and the offensive line is going to continue to be banged up, which is good for you. And they're gonna. You just really need like sustained drives that are grinded out, like Army type stuff, because you're going to get so many 3rd and 1 carries and 4th and goal carries and stuff like that, and that's how you clear that number easily. Because that is their rushing threat, like that is their goal line back. So I think it could get there. That just doesn't feel like a Cats bet because you only bet freebies, like automatic winners, because you live in New Jersey and don't have to bet parlays like I do.
But so I played twice now into the narrative that you run your QB into the ground in these big games. I played Will Howard rushing over 10.5 yards as well. There's nothing to save him for. You fucking run him until he could die on the field. It's whatever. There's no tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, it's nicer when you have just attempts. Like that makes perfect sense for attempts. I'm a little bit more weary on yards because sacks, but like a 10 and a half, I actually threw in one parlay this morning and it was over 12.5 rush yards for Howard. So I think I'm in agreement there. Let's talk Jeremiah Love, because was that not – walk me through your timeline of the game last week where Jeremiah Love started and it was like, oh, okay, he looks pretty decent, I feel like, and then he just was never used. And then he comes out hot in the second half where like Penn State just decided to leave the middle of the run game open, and he looked like he had some burst. So walk me through how you emotionally were feeling.
First half felt great, right?
3 for 10. It was incredible.
3 for 10. It was amazing. He's like, they're mixing in price. They like, it's been pretty publicly stated, and they backed it up with the reality that I don't know how to pronounce his name, Aeneas Williams. Like, he is all the third down work. He is passing situations. Like, he is like you're the shit that you love to do with projections. Like, you can cut and paste and like feel very strong about his usage. I think maybe not from a touches perspective, from a snaps perspective, like you can write that in blood. And it's just the variable is game script. So it was great seeing that play out in practice. And then first half, they were giving Price a bunch of touches too. Problem was he was trash. Right.
He was like, so bad. He looked so bad.
Yeah. And then halftime, they shoot him up with the drugs. And that first drive, it's just like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like he was fine, but like Penn State just decided not to play run D, and all of a sudden it's 3 carries for 25 yards, and I'm like, at that point I'm like, okay, time to flip back and forth between this game and Skeleton Crew, the Star Wars show. So I'm like, I'm pausing one, putting on the other until like I get back in a good enough mental place where I can watch more of the Love show, and then. As the third quarter progressed, after he was at 35 yards, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, the path to this is basically like, after it was like 17-10 or whatever, I was like, need Penn State to score, need a Notre Dame stop, need Penn State to score again, like this concatenation of events. And it basically played out that way. That's the only reason it won. Got really lucky. Didn't factor in the drugs into the handicap. Or Penn State deciding to stop playing run D, and then needed that field goal at the end to not force OT, because he gets it if it goes to overtime.
Yeah, I mean, it was inevitable. He ended at 45 yards, 11 carries. But yet here you are betting the under again at, what was it, 50.5?
Yeah.
Why?
He could. So it feels like somewhat evidence-based rumor is he's got an MCL injury, right? He's been knocked out with it a couple times. The way that things just played out in a way that didn't, like, there's still a bunch of different ways to win, right? He could get re-injured, drugs can be less effective, the game script can go against him. I think that things played out a bunch of the factors that resulted in him getting close to losing me a ton of money last week. were favorable for him. I think that like I don't know if all those factors play out as favorably this time.
I think if he did in fact get juiced up with drugs at halftime, they're going to do that pregame. Like
You need to watch the 2-yard that 2-yard run for the touchdown was the most drug fueled rage anyone's ever had.
Dude, they said he was not 100%. They said that he was like banged up, and he freaking hurdles a guy. He catches like leaps 10 yards in the air to catch a pass, and like makes a cut. And sure, he's tackled quickly, but like he made a cut. And then that touchdown run was ridiculous.
He told the ESPN crew pregame, per the ESPN crew, he's like, "Yeah, I'm good to go, but the one thing I won't be doing today, I won't be hurdling anyone.
I won't be hurdling anybody.
Hurdles a guy.
What was funny was I thought Jadarian Price was Jeremiah Love once, and it was like that 12-yard carry, and I was like, "Oh my God, we're toast! Like we just lost it."
What numbers did you get?
I got like 51.5 or whatever.
Yeah,
and then
so
like I did bet a little bit on like I think when it was in the low 40s, I think I got it too. I got lucky because I bet some stuff like super early when it dropped, just because I was like, this isn't gonna stick.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about like waiting for subs or anything. Like this is just a mistake. There's no way it lasts. Otherwise, traditionally, I try to wait as long as possible to bet stuff. But I don't know. We can get past this here in a second, but I don't think the Jeremiah Love re-injury thing is a thing. I think he like tore his MCL, and there's no re-injuring your MCL. Like if it's torn, it's torn. Like if you're juiced with steroids or drugs, like that's all you can do. So I don't know. I think there's definitely routes to it, right? Like Wisner. I say it wrong every time, and then I feel confident about it, and then it doesn't sound right. He didn't look great, and he had 18 carries. Like I think Love's better, but like is Love like that much better? Poor game script is very likely. So you have that on the problem is this dude freaking runs for 65 yards every game. And so I think he has the burst to do that. It's just a matter of like, will Ohio State give him a lane? I don't know. Yeah. It's not a bad bet by any means.
I just thought it was like a good, like
if I could bet it solo, I would have bet it solo for sure. But when I have to bet parlays and stuff, I don't know. It didn't scream to me. Speaking of Jeremiah Love, well, I guess, do you want to make a prediction, or do you care about that type of stuff about how the game goes?
I don't understand why Notre Dame keeps taking money. Hopefully Ohio State just does work. I'll predict 38-13 Ohio State.
I think it'll be closer, but I don't think it'll be that much closer. Probably like a 27-13 Ohio State type thing. I don't know. Part of me feels like Notre Dame can keep this tight.
Yeah.
Like ultimately Ohio State lost to Michigan.
Yeah.
Like that's always gonna be in the back of my head that like they lost to a pathetic offense and a banged up defense. Like that's just gonna stick in my brain. But I just don't know. I don't think Michigan and Notre Dame are comparable from like what Michigan was trying to do to like what Notre Dame can do. Not that obviously Michigan's not better than Notre Dame, but like I think you have to like kind of try to bully and be more physical than Ohio State. And I don't think mentality standpoint, maybe, and physically standpoint, they're not like fully there. I don't know.
Tell me if this corollary is way off. When 3 years ago, when UGA beat Ohio State on that missed field goal in the semifinals, it just felt like a wave of relief. Pressure's off. Let's just go out and fucking beat the shit out of TCU. Like play our game type deal. No more no more stress. Do you think we could see that with Ohio State getting by Texas? Like they were playing so fucking tight in that game, from what I understand. I didn't actually watch it. I was reading a book, but it seemed like that from from tracking the play-by-play and like just reading what people say about it. Like, could the pressure be off now and they just go back to like proactively unleashing the aliens and like actually calling the good plays, which are probable?
I don't think so, because Ryan Day, but also like TCU was in hindsight, they were such a Cinderella. Like they really were not like anywhere near Georgia, and Georgia was undefeated, right? And TCU was obviously great, but like, I don't know. I don't think it's close, but I don't think it's fully comparable. I think we think that Notre Dame is so much worse than Ohio State, but this Ohio State team lost twice. I don't know, Texas didn't look all that great, and they almost
Yeah.
could have won, right? Like, but I do think there's probably some level of pressure. Like, I think in hindsight, Ohio State fans, like, let's say they win the championship, it'll be kind of like with Michigan in last year with the Rose Bowl. It's kind of like the game I think about the most in the Michigan championship was the Rose Bowl. Like, if I were to like rewatch one of those two games or watch a highlight video of one of those, the championship or the Rose Bowl, like I'm watching the Michigan Rose Bowl against Bama. And I think that'll be the same thing for Ohio State fans. It'll be like, we won the championship, but like, man, that, what was it? The Cotton Bowl? The Cotton Bowl was incredible. Like, that really like sealed it essentially. So I think there is some comparable aspects to it. So I released the top 24 picks in the underdog, who I think will be taken in the first 2 rounds of underdog best ball drafts in 2025. I've shared this list with you before, and then obviously you probably didn't even click into it to help me with views. Appreciate that. Jeremiah Love is inside the top 12. So I'll start there. Is that crazy? Like, do you think Jeremiah Love is deserving of a first round selection?
I've consumed so much Notre Dame State news over the past couple of weeks that like I'm starting to believe what they all say, that he's like the greatest running back of all time. It feels steep though. They're probably still going to not give him that many carries. Like, why him over Isaac Brown?
Well, I think Isaac Brown, to an extent, like, I think he has to battle off a guy a little bit. He has to fend off. I think
they're still gonna have a 3-man committee at Notre Dame next year.
Yeah, but like, I think Jeremiah Love is more likely to repeat the whole like 7 yards per carry and touchdown per game type thing. And Isaac Brown, I think there is a little bit of risk that, like, I'm not saying, by the way, this is what I think the community will bet or draft. So I think there's a little bit of like saving my ass and that type of thing. I think it's close. Like, I probably would lean Brown because I think he'll win the job and like doesn't have to fend off Duke Watson as much as like we currently feel like. But I mean, Jeremiah Love is pretty incredible.
It's so weird looking at your articles. Every single player I look at, I'm like, that guy's in the top 2 round pick. These guys suck. But it's like, that's what's left, right?
Dude, look, it is, maybe we should have started with this, but like my take looking at and like trying to figure out the first 2 rounds was, I feel so confident in all of these quarterbacks, at least in like delivering some sort of value that's like close to where they would be taken, right? I am so sketched out by all these running backs and receivers. Like last year we had Giddens, Hampton, Ollie Gordon, which didn't work out. Like, if you played G5 leagues, obviously Genty was like a top guy. Like Jaden Ott, who didn't work out, but like Devin Neal, Jordan James. Like, there were so many names that felt like, yeah, this running back is awesome. Like, this is going to be great. And that is 100% not the case this year. That's next year. And I think that's why you're looking at this article. Like, how is this guy in the top 24?
Did you write this? You did. You wrote this on the assumption that Singleton's gone.
I wrote this. Well, yeah, but it didn't matter because Singleton and Catron are back, and so thus I don't.
Where do they go? Do you think they're both getting pushed up?
Oh, I think they'll be taken like 4th and 6th round. I think they'll move. I was talking to PSU fans about that, Sean, briefly on Twitter. Like, I think they move up to like what we saw Travion and Quinshon.
Inter-tout conversation.
Every now and then we mix opinions. Yeah, I think like a 4th and 6th round type thing, 4th and 7th. Like, I think obviously Singleton's the guy that you would want, but I think like Catron had such a strong second half of the year that he is going to get some hype. He's not going to be lasting until the 10th or 11th round like he was last year.
Yeah, I think I agree.
The question is Judkins. I think. Do you think Judkins returns? And then if he does return, where do you put him?
Why would he come back? He sucked. Like,
I mean, especially with Singleton coming back, it's like, well, now it's one less guy I have to try to be better than.
It's not like, not even his statistics. Did you watch a lot of Ohio State this year?
Too much.
Do you think did he look good one time ever?
I didn't think he looked good.
I know the line was trash, especially for like his kind of like, Travion just can make shit happen, right? Judkins, it looked like the play call was every time run inside into this horrible offensive line. and
he
pray
did
you get
nothing.
4 carries, 4 yards.
I don't know how you could watch an Ohio State game and like come away with the fact like you think that Judkins is better than Travion. Like I don't know how you look at that and be like, yeah, I want Judkins, not Travion. I think Judkins was really awesome as a freshman, was cool as a sophomore, and he's just like, this is like, he probably is going to get the benefit of the doubt because of the fact that, oh, we were saving him for the playoffs. Like, oh, we kept him healthy. Like, we didn't that's why his numbers weren't huge because of that type of stuff. But he was really unimpressive to me.
Yeah.
So, from a running back perspective, like the first running back I have taken is Mekhi Hughes and then Darius Taylor. I mean, you've had days to think about it or let it randomly hit your brain. Does that feel right, or do you feel like there's someone else?
I guess it's fine.
Do you think it's
I don't know
fine
about
because holy shit, these are the
Taylor,
options though?
Why is Taylor so high?
Just like volume. I think volume, he was essentially a first or second rounder last year, and he was good. I mean,
he was fine.
The Minnesota offense was serviceable, and he was good. And he was like eased into the role this year when he came back from that injury. So I think like a guy like him and like Desmond Reed, who I have in the top 10, I think this format is probably not as great for them because of half point PPR. But like in our Champion Series best ball drafts, like I think they're incredible options. Again, what other running back would right. I don't know, you know, like you already don't really like Jeremiah Love as much. Like you like Isaac Brown, which is cool, but like Desmond Reed, you know, Bryson Washington was in my top 24.
Washington,
Dylan Edwards.
I thought you were a little low on him. I bet he goes higher.
I might be a little bit too low on him. Yeah, it might be, but I still think second round at least to start.
Yeah, that's fine.
So in my second round, I also have for running backs, I have Jaheim White, who I know you're going to be on.
No, there's
you're
like
going to be in on the Rich Rod.
You don't track transfers independently like I do. They brought in like 3 other running backs already.
Dude, if you're Rich Rod, how do you not go with Jaheim White?
The other guys here. Let me filter my Google sheet a little bit, and we can talk about this.
So I have Jaheim White. While you look that up, I have Jaheim White going 20th. You know, basically around like Dylan Edwards 19th, and Bryson Washington 21, and then so those are the last running backs taken I have in the top 2 rounds. And I think in total it's like 9 quarterbacks, and then like 6 or 7 running backs, and then whatever's left is receivers. I think receiver is super tough this year. I don't feel great about anyone other than Jeremiah Smith.
Dude, they brought in Josh's boy, Ty Edwards.
Stop.
And some guy from I have no idea what level of football this is. Some guy named LJ Turner from Catawba College. Before you dismiss it, perhaps Trey Stewart, except this guy's like 5'9", 190, so probably not.
The thing with me and Jaheim White is like, if you're Rich Rod, you just saw this guy, he ran for 5.7 yards per carry on a year like where he just did not look great. Like no one is thinking Jaheim White's hot sauce, like he's the best, but he ran for over 7 yards a carry the year before. If you're Rich Rod, you're seeing that thinking like, I'm going to get so many rushing yards with this dude.
The quarterback situation is interesting at West Virginia too, right? Because
would you call it interesting or would you call it awful?
Rich Rod quarterback. So
yeah, but if it's Nico, like that's not.
We had Nate on our Big 12 preview like 3 years ago, and when Rod Smith hit Rich Rod's OC was at Illinois, I was like, I want to figure out who the quarterback is, and Nate was like, you idiot, figure out the running back. And I was like, and it turned out to be like, yeah, that was the right call. Anyway, like if he runs his quarterback 200 times like he did Huff, that's monstrous, right? But
yes, but who is the quarterback?
They brought in Jalen Henderson from A&M.
Oh,
and they just got Max Brown from Charlotte. So
yeah, Henderson, I'm intrigued by.
I know he looked at minimum like he looked way better than I expected when he actually got run at A&M.
Yeah, and Big 12 schedules, man. Like the more you look at like the Big 10 or Big 12 schedules, it's like this is not as crazy. Like I was looking at John Mateer going to the SEC is like crazy. The schedule that he has to face really is difficult. then I'm like, well, I'm going to have to dock Devin Dampier for his schedule in the Big 12. And then you look at it and
It's carnival.
really,
It's the
yeah.
best.
I mean, he plays Arizona State and he plays BYU, but then they play Texas Tech, Cincinnati, Colorado, West Virginia, Baylor. And those are those are the conference games at Utah. So like, I don't know. Like, I feel like a Jalen Henderson could have a lot of success if he gets the job.
Yeah, good. I don't know what's going to happen both at QB and RB. It'll be interesting to see what the market dictates there and if it feels like there's actual ambiguity because last year after probably like round 11 or 12 in underdog, I just like ADP meant nothing to me and I was just kind of doing my thing, but that really meant I was doing my own thing, taking from a pool of like 15 guys. I would like to bump that up to like 30 or 40 this year. Because while I hit on lots of those guys, like my late round picks were really good to me, still like I had of that pool of like 15 guys, I had a bunch of dead spots on every single team.
I mean, it's almost inevitable, but like if you spread around maybe you avoid it a little bit more. I mean, you had so much material. It's hard to be like, I hate that I had drafted so many of the same guy when that also is the reason why you made many teams so good, right?
Right. My biggest problem on underdog last year was that I didn't leverage being on Mateer properly and was still taking too many other QBs early. So I never got
I didn't get as many.
Yeah, I didn't get the effect. I had one Taj Brooks team. Maybe I could have had more. And right. Zero Scatabo, zero RJ Harvey, like in hindsight's 2020, but like maybe some of these picks where I was taking QBs in those situations, I could have taken more shots on RBs.
Yeah, I think if you're in your head, you're like, I want to draft a stud quarterback, and then I want to get some running backs, let's say. But you also think John Mateer's a stud quarterback.
Right.
You should kind of be acting like he's your second round pick.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
In the 8th round, right? So it's a little bit hard. Obviously, hindsight's easy, right? I think we all liked, right? If we thought Mateer was going to win the gig, we all liked where he was going to be, but none of us sat here and thought he would be like Genty levels of good in terms of production. Like, that's just insane. Have you sat down and looked at any of the receivers? Because it's the grossest group of receivers I've seen in a while. I mean, it's basically from what I've put together, and I'm obviously going to be very wrong. Jeremiah Smith is incredible option, almost no matter who gets the quarterback job, right? Then you have like Ryan Williams. Other guys I have listed are in this order, technically. Eugene Wilson, Deion Burks, Jordan Tyson, Evan Stewart, and Denzel Boston. Like, those are like the guys I think people consider as like the top 6 or 8 receivers. Like, that's a pretty gross top 6 or 8, right?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't thought about the lay of the land relative to underdog like you have. This is my first, or like really started to think about 2025 stuff through the lens of drafting. Basically, the entirety of what I've done with 2025 is just tracking transfers, so that when I do go to start to formulate some ideas about what I want to do, like I have at least a good understanding of rosters and I can decision off that.
Do you like Devin Burks just in a vacuum? Do you like Devin Burks or Deion Burks?
So he's more expensive than last year because slot receiver and Arbuckle's offense, right?
Well, yes. I didn't even think about it like that, but I think also like Mateer effect. I think Mateer will, not that like Mateer's some god at passing, but like people will have known the name, and I think we'll attach it to him. Like the whole stacking option,
I forgot that this is an exercise in like what you think people will do. So people will want to stack him with Mateer, and the price will get pushed up, basically.
Yeah, but I didn't even think about it from like a slot perspective. That's a great.
Yeah,
I mean, I should add that to my article and
I
make
think
it sound like I did
he's
myself.
more likely to go in like 3-4 range than 2.
It's so hard to just figure out who's even going to be there. Like, some of these receivers just feel weird. Like Chris Hilton was super interesting for LSU down the stretch, but like
looked incredible.
That room is so full Nussmeier is the biggest benefit there, but like, could the receiver one for LSU be a second rounder?
That so the way I played that last year and it didn't work was basically like
The way all of us played that last year and it didn't work because no
was
one
taking
drafted Aaron Anderson.
Hilton. Yeah.
Hilton, Xavion, CJ Daniels, once the price got lower, it was awful. Everything sucked.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably try and run back something similar where how would you project the ranking order, the hierarchy of LSU receivers relative to ATP?
Like, I think it's probably going to be very close. Aaron Anderson, Chris Hilton. And then I think Nick Anderson right behind because he's new but known. And then Barian Brown.
Fuck Barian Brown, dude. I will not.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think Barian Brown's all that great, but his speed is insane. And
if Nick is going in double-digit rounds on underdog, I'm interested in that.
I would be interested too, just because I think he poses as something the rest of them aren't. Right?
He's a monster.
I think he's like a slow but talented X receiver, right? But like, whereas these other guys seem to be small, fast receivers, right? Like Barian Brown is not known for like winning the catch type BS, right? Like he's just a fast guy. Same with Chris Hilton, downfield stretcher. Aaron Anderson is like short field stuff that's fast.
Yeah.
Possession. I think in my head, I'm like, I'm going to target so much on upside. I don't see why Aaron Anderson would make any sense because his game log is the same every single time, 6 for 60 and a touchdown. Whereas like Chris Hilton can get you like the 3 for 140 and a touchdown. Yeah. And that like, I feel like is worth it rather than just banking on Aaron Anderson's averageness.
It'll be interesting to see where they go.
I think if there was one, maybe two guys less, you could see a guy creep so far up the ladder in terms of ADP. I said it was a super deep quarterback room. Like, I mean, you've seen the list, so you saw like my top 8 or 9 guys. You were very knowledgeable about quarterbacks, generally speaking. Like, I didn't include some really good names. And like, there's incredible group. Like, do you think this is a
name? Fine. Should we talk about it? You know the name you're missing that's going in top 2 rounds, right?
You need to give me the name. Don't hold anything back here. For one, no one's gonna remember. This is January, mid-January, so no one's gonna remember in 4 months.
Demond, yeah.
Yeah, he was just on the cup. I mean, like if I was to put together an honorable mention, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. If I was to do an honorable mention, he was a part of it. And I had some interesting names. Let me see if I got it right here. Okay, so by the way, is Antonio Williams back or is he going pro?
Yeah, he's back.
So, all right. So here's the names I had that were like kind of honorable mention-ish. Damon Williams, Josh Hoover, Sawyer Robertson.
Is Klubnik in your top 24?
Klubnik is like 8 or 9 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah, he's top 10. Yeah. Quentin Joyner, Caden Durham, Justice Haynes, Damon Claiborne. I think Durham's the guy I like the least of that group, but like I think you could argue the rest of them. And then your boy, DeZon Stribling.
My dog.
Ole Miss. And then Antonio Williams was another name I thought like could be in contention for it.
I guess. I don't know. I don't like most of those guys.
There's a reason they're not in the top 24, Andrew.
Clemson receiver order will be fun too.
Yeah, I had this conversation with Nate and some C2C guys, and I shifted tune after like seeing how Klubnik would like start to focus. My worry was 3 months ago that like he would just spread around to the top 3 and just like there wasn't just enough volume there. Then it got to be okay. Well, like now it feels like the volume is getting higher in terms of attempts, and he's throwing it to the top 3 and really the top 2 a good bit. So I shifted my tune on him, but I'm without saying like where I think they'll go. Like what pecking order would you have, and like how high are we talking?
I will never draft Antonio Williams high, even though like he definitely like played way better and did better than I expected this year. I'm a West Coast simp. The guy looks like a fucking monster out there. And then TJ Moore looked incredible in the bowl game, right? So I think kind of similar to LSU. at least initially. I want to see how things go once drafts get going, and if one of them is slipping, and if it's more or Wesco, I'm in. What that the most interesting part of that offense could be like.
You're gonna go right to where I was gonna go next. Go
Who
ahead.
the fuck is going to be running back?
I was just gonna say, well, let me wrap up this thought first. I think that's the order that you mentioned. I think it's Williams, Wesco, Moore, and I kind of think that like Moore kind of could be left in the dust a little bit. It always felt like the first two were the guys that Klubnik wanted to throw to,
Yeah,
and then it was like, oh, defense has done something to make me just throw it to Moore. But I do think all three of them, like that's a jumbo receiver 3 group if I've ever seen
for
one.
sure.
It just
Yeah.
depends on how late that last one's going. But yeah, I was just going to ask you, is Adam Randall the cheat code of 2025?
Oh man, yeah. Mike shared his depth chart, and he had Randall there. So you're thinking just from a position eligibility thing, definitely potentially, right? Because your boy Haynes and his ACL, that looks highly
RIP.
questionable, and then all the other guys suck. So and they're not bringing in transfer. So
Yeah,
what are we doing?
I think the cheat codeness of this is you're going to get a running back at a receiver position, and like
Yeah.
we saw what like a bell cow running back could do for you. Like it just provides such a nice floor, and like Adam Randall's a big guy. Like he kind of looks like he shouldn't be there. Like he's too big for. It almost looks like he's 10 pounds from being a tight end. I'm obviously not correct in like the size and all that, but like he looks big. And so if Randall's a running back and he's receiver eligibility, that to me is super interesting.
So he's Savion part 2.
He's Savion part 2. Just wait till all the NFL draft guys get to him. What do you think about Stribling at Ole Miss? I was hesitant because we don't really know who the quarterback is. And it just feels like Lane Kiffin just brings in as many players as possible and has zero regard for like truth and lies to people.
Yeah, for sure. They continue to bring in guys. Excuse me. I'm not sure Caden Lee will ever do it for me. So, and then who else do they have coming back? Do you remember?
I don't think it's that deep of a group. I think they went to the portal for most of their options there.
The Alabama kid, Caleb Owen.
Yeah. By the way, another possible cheat code because he is a Tito.
Oh, Proton will be pleased.
On Fantrax, at least he was he's tight end eligible.
Yeah. Deuce Alexander from Wake and then Traylon Ray from the Rich Rods.
I mean, if that's your group, then you'd have to imagine Stribling is 1 and Lee is 2. Like I like Lee. I don't think he's like anything overly exciting, but like if they find a capable quarterback, who do you think would be a quarterback?
Right now is who do they have besides Simmons?
I think it's that the
Louisville kid.
The Louisville kid, yeah. He's not going to be it. That's definitely not him. Pierce Clarkson is his name. Not him. You almost wonder if, like, I think I saw a rumor that Quinn Ewers was getting contacted by Ole Miss. I mean, he pulls the Carson back, right? Like, he's not going pro.
I think so. I think you're right.
I just don't see how you could do that. In an age, especially in an age where, like, I think teams really are starting to see that, like, the value in a ton of starts. You know, like, I don't like 5 years ago, it's almost like, why are you playing a 5th year in college? Like, you must have sucked. But now it's like with Bo Nix and Penix, it's like maybe there's and Jaden Daniels, these guys that have played and started so many games, it's almost like, oh, you just made the decision to hang out with 18 to 22-year-old women. So we're totally cool with that. So I don't know. What about another name I had in here that I'm interested to hear what you thought is Eugene Wilson, Trey Wilson.
I guess, I mean, I'm sure it could work. I think you need a lot of things to click. The passing game with DJ is so scattershot. It's like 3 and out, 40-yard pass, some run play calls. It just feels like that you're counting on. I don't know what his injury was. Is it something that we feel like we have to worry about going into next year?
I think it was just super cautious. Like it just was like,
Eugene?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I
maybe.
think it was knee or lower. It was definitely, I'm fairly
Yeah.
sure it was lower body.
Yeah.
Makes me feel like it's like an MCL type where it's like we could maybe push him to come back this year, but like we're not going to go to the national, like the
Why
playoffs. So why bother?
why do we like, or why do we think that the market will like Eugene more than they did this past year?
I think it's helpful that DJ Lagway is the quarterback. I mean, nobody is like excited about having passes thrown to him by Graham Mertz, right?
It was like predicted. There was a predictable floor there.
Yeah, but I think you get the same thing. I mean, we saw with Lagway what he did with Badger. Badger averaged over 20 yards a catch. He had 800 yards on like
Yeah.
39 receptions. I think what you're going to get and everybody's going to know is that like Trey Wilson's going to be like a 30% target share guy.
Fair.
I think ultimately I'm too high on him. I think that's probably the one that in hindsight I'm like, I mean, would you rather Burks or Wilson today?
The OU stuff is like, it just feels like this team is like so close to being a total fucking train wreck.
What about Jordan Tyson?
Tyson.
What about Evan Stewart?
I don't know if I could do it.
I think that, yeah, I agree with that one. Denzel Boston.
One thing that I'll probably copy paste from last year to this year on Underdog is I'm just not doing wide receivers early. I did it on I think I did 80 drafts last year. Maybe my first like 10-15%. I was okay taking a couple of receivers early, but as things progressed for like the middle, maybe 30 or 40, I was looking to do one receiver in the first 5 rounds, and then the last like 20 or 30 drafts, I was like, fuck that, no receivers until like round 9, and I might run that back again. Like I just don't. I feel like I'll be fine finding guys later.
I will tell you, it was not really successful to have to have early receivers. Just
It was
for
like
like,
Restrepo or nothing, probably, right?
yeah, pretty much. Let's see if I can pull up a draft real quick. The top receivers drafted this past year were Tez. Oh, come on, load. That's not the right thing. Is it the right thing? Oh, here we go. Stand by. Tez was up there. I know that. And you had obviously Evan Stewart was up there. Tet McMillan, Emeka Buka, Casey Concepcion, Travis Hunter, Trey Harris. Those were the first 3 rounds. 4th round is just nasty. Ayo Manor, Eugene Wilson, Isaiah Bond, Jeremy Bernard, Squirrel White, Kyron Lacey. I think you could argue, in Burden, of course. I think you could argue oh my God, Travis Hunter and Trey Harris and Restrepo were definitely worth it, right? And that's it. I don't think you could consider any of those guys I talked about at the end as valuable.
Yeah,
that's pretty gross. And you're right. I don't think the group's any better. Ted McMillan was cool for a couple weeks, but like he gave you nothing for so many weeks. Luther Burden was banged up / not good.
yeah.
I think the only guy that I would consider just off the cuff, I think would consider at the very top would be Jeremiah Smith. Like, I don't know how Jeremiah Smith fails, right?
He goes pro after this year.
That's the only way he doesn't have a huge season in 2025. So, yeah. What else do you got for me? Anything good?
What do you think the betting fantasy CFB landscape looks like in terms of how the options we have for our bankroll?
I think nothing changes this year, and then I think
2020 that'd be nice.
And then 2026, I think shit could hit the fan.
Yeah,
like I think that the availability of where you can do this, even on like Underdog, could go crazy bad. I think it's all going to be potentially all offshore stuff by then.
You can make compelling arguments so many different ways. I generally gravitate toward the doom and gloom scenarios because I see them in my backyard becoming more and more like potentially present. But like the counter argument is like this shit is getting like too big to fail. Like there's like with the advent of player empowerment, the like players being in the game and shit, like people want more and more player level shit. And that translates to financial gain for so many people getting their hands in the cookie jar that like it's tough to shut that down once that steam engine gets rolling. That's the counter argument.
I mean, it's what I would consider the common sense argument is guys are making millions of dollars as it is. Like, what am I betting his over 10.5 rushing yards? What's that going to do to it? If your options were in 2026, you take the strong risk of everything going away from betting college football props, or your other option is you can only bet overs. Would you take which side would you take? Where you can only bet overs, or would you, like, if today you said I have these two options for 2026 season, 80% likely that there's no college football props in 2026, or my second option is it's there in 2026, but I can only bet overs. Which would you take?
So I have a 20% chance of a full landscape,
or 100% chance at a shitty situation.
And I have to choose,
but it's available.
Yeah, I guess the overs one.
Could you imagine just betting overs? Like Mike would just, I think Mike's head would
explode.
There's
still opportunity, right? It's a lot tougher. Like, dude, one of the Daniel Jackson, Elijah Spencer stuff.
There's always opportunity, but it's going to be
it's tougher.
It's going to be just like the reason why like Elijah Spencer was cool is because like bowl season. It wasn't because like we're not going to get that type of. That's going to be one or two a week max. I feel like.
Yeah,
like
it becomes much tougher.
Yeah, hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully people figure it out because like I don't know, guys are making millions on NIL stuff. Which, funny enough, people were like, has anybody ever actually seen like the paperwork on these NIL deals? Like, what is Bryce Underwood getting the, like, what is he actually, because wasn't the original intention was like, oh, you do commercials or you do this or that, and in return you get money. Like, what are these guys actually doing?
I don't know.
If they just said, here's a check for X amount of money, it's an NIL deal. And then like nobody, it was just like once somebody said NIL deal, it's like, okay, cool. And like nobody questioned it from anywhere else.
It's a long way to go until next year. Hopefully we still have markets available.
All right. So to wrap us up, I want you to give me your prediction on this total bet. Okay, you ready? Georgia wins 8.5 over under.
Did you pull that from somewhere?
No.
Because when totals are trying to come out, FanDuel has like 10 of them. I bet one last night.
Oh my God. Tell me which one you bet. Well, first of all, tell me which one you bet last night.
So I almost bet Colorado under 7.5 juice to like 186.
Oh, we do need to talk about that. That's a good call.
Because the Deion rumor, I'm happy I didn't though. It's like too much juice to lay. And there's just like too much variance to like pay that price. Like so much shit could happen one way or another. I bet before, so they released all these. They released like 10 of these last night. Before that, though, the only one out there was the UNC one, which has been out there for a while, and I finally bet that. I bet under on 7.5 at like plus 104.
That's good. Who's even on that team?
That's what I'm saying. Like, this could if it's gonna work, it could easily take a year. Like I was looking at their portal class, so they've started the semester. They can't take anyone else based on what I was reading on 247. Like, so obviously after the spring, there's another portal opening. So sure, more can happen. But like they brought in no one good. Like, I don't know how you feel about that dude, Ryan Brown. I think that dude sucks. And yeah, they're like when all the cameras from all the channels are on their first game of next year against TCU, Max Johnson's probably starting for them. That is not interesting. Like, the only reason they won games this year is because they had, like, I doubted him so much. I doubted how successful he would be, but Omari Hampton is like transcendent to be able to do what he did on that garbage team. Like, without like him leaving and them not backfilling that in any sort of representative way. Like, I don't know what is a cause for optimism with this roster.
From an offensive standpoint, I have no idea. It looks like they had all these options and they didn't replace them with anybody.
Yeah. The schedule, they've got probably 4 to 5 guaranteed wins. Elon, Charlotte, a couple real like they play Wake. I think they have one other that game that looks like okay, that's like a pretty easy win. Outside of that, like lots of coin flips, and then a couple that you're probably not winning. Tough to win 8. I'll play my first 2025 future at
plus money.
Yeah, plus money.
That's a good bet.
Thank you.
All right. So does Georgia get there over 8.5?
I don't know the schedule, but I would say yes.
Marshall, Austin P at Tennessee, Bama, Kentucky at Auburn, Ole Miss, Florida at Mississippi State, Texas, Charlotte at Georgia Tech.
Just an amazing non-con. Georgia Tech being so real makes it like there's a floor associated with that non-con compared to like some teams, right? But like the other 3 games are so funny.
There's no way the line would ever be 8.5 because you'd have to have 4 losses.
And no, it's 9.5 juice over right now on FanDuel. Like juice pretty heavily.
Yeah, I mean basically it's like at Tennessee, Bama, Texas, and then I think you have the next tier of like scary matchups, and that's at Georgia Tech, and then I think you could potentially include at Auburn just because Auburn should be better at Auburn and rivalry type stuff. But otherwise,
I was pleasantly surprised.
Florida too, I should say. Actually, I would include Florida over Auburn as a intimidating team.
I was pleasantly surprised at how Stockton looked in against Notre Dame, just from the standpoint of like I thought the bottom could totally fall out, and it didn't get there, even though like there was downward trajectory as the game progressed, as you might expect, like get away from like the scripted stuff, defense adjust, et cetera. But still, like I don't know if I feel strong at all about him leading the offense going into 2025. Like that leave, if he's the starter, I think there's like how many games do I feel really confident about once we get that SEC play?
Yeah, I mean, if Carson Beck can do it, I don't know. They're different people, and I think what we're starting to see here is I think a shift in like Georgia's stuff around the quarterback position is not as good, and it's now making it way more important that quarterback be better and better as the other stuff around him is worse and worse, right? Not surprising. And I also don't think it helps that like Georgia's defense is becoming like not absolutely insane. I mean, what does your quarterback need to be when you have like one of the best defenses ever? Yeah. Right. Like it certainly helps, but
we're losing so many guys off defense too.
Yeah. I mean, just at some point you can't replace everybody. Like it doesn't matter how good of a recruiting class you are or how good you are at developing. Like when you have this many first, second, third rounders get picked, it's just like,
can we go back to having like third string 5-stars and shit?
Well, that's what happens when you get NIL and 12-team playoff. You get SEC gets kicked down a little bit. Do you think Gunnar Stockton is the actual quarterback for Georgia in 2025?
My uninformed opinion is no.
Do you think it's CJ Agbana?
or Deshaun Purdy or whatever his name is? I like the idea of Puglisi. I have no idea if he's actually good, but I think it's cool that he committed while Rayola was committed, and then Rayola walked away, and he kind of continued to like stand firm and shit.
I think you'll remember the idea of Puglisi being way better than the actual version of Puglisi.
I don't know if we've ever seen him.
Matt Bruning from C2C loved Puglisi as like a recruit, as a prospect. Yeah. So maybe you never know. I mean, like, did people really think that? Like, obviously they didn't, but like, what's his name? The guy that went JUCO and then came back and then got drunk all the time. Stetson. So yeah,
Staquavius.
Staquavius, cool. Well, hope you guys enjoy this week's episode 002 of 2025. We'll catch you guys after the national championship. Maybe have some more fun, different things to talk about. Maybe Dion at the Cowboys, what that does to Kadon Salter. We'll see. But we'll check you guys out next week. Enjoy the game.